Good morning. Hi. Today's selection is Ralph Ellison's Battle Royal, which is an excerpt, a sort of adapted excerpt from his masterpiece novel from 1947, Invisible Man. This is our last reading before the first paper, so please do check your prompts online. They're due in a couple days. And I will be available for answering questions and giving you some tips and talking about your thesis and that kind of thing over the next few days. Um, Again, that's due Wednesday at 11 p.m. I want to give you a couple small tips before we go. We've talked about intros, body paragraphs, conclusions, quotation format. A couple other small things. One is that I would definitely try to outline this before you begin. The way to outline it is make sure that you know what goes into an intro paragraph. So make sure you write your thesis. A good thesis, you probably go through it 5, 6, 7 times before you get it right where you want. It's like poetry. It's got to be perfect. So go through a few drafts of your thesis and then use that. Remember how it can imply the structure of the rest of your essay. So use that to set up your outline for the rest of the essay. I would also go ahead and pick quotes. It won't be the only quotes you use, but it could be some of the sort of anchor quotes, the crucial quotes that you want to use in these body paragraphs. Set those up with page numbers in your outline, and you will have a much easier time going through then and putting those into your body paragraphs, and then giving them context beforehand and introduction, and giving them direct textual analysis afterwards. I would not use a lot of first person in these essays. Figure that the I think and I believe type phrases are implied. So mostly write it in third person. You can very sparingly, when you feel like you need to, bring in I. But for the most part, not a lot of personal experiences or other sort of personal writing in this essay. Keep it in third person. Stay detached as the textual analyst. Also, start as you do build this this outline. Start thinking, so what? Where is this taking me? How can I get this back to something meaningful? You want to answer the prompt and the questions, but you also want to take it somewhere where any reader, including yourself, says, oh, that's kind of pretty fascinating, even, outside of just this reading. So try to answer that question. That should be nagging at the back of your mind. So what? What does this mean? What's my takeaway here? What's the bigger picture? We should try to establish that by the end of your conclusion for sure. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into Battle Royal. Another one of my favorites, along with Gilman. Not that my particular opinions matter that much on this. But to me, this one is a lot of fun to read, in part because of its use of allegory. This is one big allegory. Well, there's more to it than that. First of all, okay, so written in 1947, which means that it is, and it was actually not published until 1952, but that means this is before the Civil Rights era. This is sort of the end of Jim Crow, and, racially, things were a lot different than they are today. And he's writing a lot about race here. He's also writing about some coming of age. He's writing about sexuality and gender, but race is obviously a major issue here. Now, Invisible Man itself, which I highly recommend as just a good summer reading book, won the National Book Award and is an incredible book. It's written in the rhythm of jazz. It's a very a musical book in lots of ways in terms of its tone and the sound of it. It really flows off the page. Also a searing book, a very a difficult book to read at times because of what happens to this character. Now, our narrator at the beginning of this book, at the beginning of this excerpt, has an extremely limited view of himself, the world around him. He's very concerned with dignity, his own dignity, and he wants to be accepted and approved of by the white establishment of his town. He's in the South. Let's see. The first character we meet other than him is this grandfather, and the grandfather has some, disturbing things to say to him. He suddenly realizes that he has been living sort of for this approval, for traditional white approval as he grows up, and thinks that that's the path to success. His grandfather tells him something different. His grandfather says, in fact, that he has been a traitor from day one, that he has yes sir'd and yes ma'am'd him to death while undermining him, the white man, from beneath. So this plants in our narrator's head a seed of, how should I act? What is respect? What is dignity? These type of things. And then, so we go backwards from there. Now, in terms of the second, once we get into the second section, that's when we really see where, we travel back in time, and there's a number of different small episodes with allegorical meaning, or with metaphorical meaning, if you like, that sort of illustrate the struggle he's going through. Now, our setting for this is the hotel ballroom. He's been brought in as the best student, the best scholar at a black school, and he's told he's going to give a speech and receive an award. I would argue this is a Gothic setting. It's a smoky ballroom full of fat cat, white power brokers from the town, businessmen and others. There are two, other types of characters. There is the blonde who looks like a Cupid doll. You'll notice she's almost grotesque, sort of a sex doll, overly made up. She's a stripper who seems to represent a lot of miscegenation about or other the perils and fears among other people of intermarriage and black-white sexual relations, this type of thing. So the black men in the story, the young black men, know that there is nothing more dangerous for them than to interact with a white woman in front of white men. And in this context, in the opening scene in the ballroom, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. They're made to watch her as she is stripping, nude, and also thrown up in the air and sort of not exactly abused, but in a sort of horseplay that's not pleasant for her at all by the white men. And the black men know that this is an extremely dangerous situation because there is a long-standing sort of negative ideal that is used for power in the South, before Civil Rights era, that says white women have to fear black men. They have to fear rape at the hands of black men. And thus, white women need to be sheltered and kept inside and kept out of public society as business people and politicians, that kind of thing. And also black people, black men in particular, can't be trusted and need to be sequestered from polite and white society. We know, of course, looking back on the truth of the past, who committed the rapes? Well, it was the white men raping the black women for the most part. But that didn't stop this myth from surfacing that really served as a weapon of power that said black men can't be trusted around white women, and that raised the fear of miscegenation and interracial marriage, these type of things. So the blonde very much represents her own lower class of power. She is maybe not equally powerless, but powerless in her own way in this setting. And she's used, again, as a sort of a weapon of power on the black man. What we get is what seems like a near gang rape scene. However, it is stopped by others in the ballroom. Not exactly not always a happy story to read. I agree, it can be disturbing to read. In our second section out there, we've got the Battle Royal itself, which is 10 boys who are brought in to participate in this large fight, and they are competing for a prize. Our narrator, who is a thinker, not a fighter, is also forced to participate in the Battle Royal. So there we've got another section of the power play between black and white before the Civil Rights era, in that it's black on black violence for the amusement of the white spectator, and for a small amount of money, but not really a great reward for this. And they're also set up to hurt each other as much as possible, to gin up anger and resentment and violence against each other. This is sort of again, we see it as a maintenance of power, is a question of power, but it's also an allegory for how black on black violence prevents the improvement of circumstances for the black race at the time. You know when you're reading this who they should be fighting. And yet only two of them, or only our narrator and perhaps another player in there, really see that this is maybe not the greatest idea to fight each other here for this. Okay, so, and there's some rebellions. Our narrator does start to rebel, even though we can see that there's two narrators here. There's the narrator as an older man looking back at himself in this scene and looking back with some chagrin, wishing he had acted differently or seen through things a little more. And then we've got the narrator in the middle of it who is more naive, who doesn't see what's happening, what's going on. And yet he does rebel a little bit. I saw three rebellions. One is when, during the battle royal, he attempts to sort of make a little alliance with the last remaining other man in there to say he'll give him the money if he goes down, that sort of stop the fair play, not try to beat each other to a pulp, and just end the whole battle royal and get the money and split it. The second rebellion occurs on the next section, which is the electrified mat. Now, this is a mat, what it looks like, full of money. Again, sort of allegorically using materialism and the pursuit of wealth and power and designer label clothes and nice cars and expensive champagne, all of this sort of materialistic matters, using that also to distract from the bigger power battle that is underway. So in that one, the electrified mat, it's sort of it's a trap. The idea that this pursuit of money and materialistic gain is a trap that will keep them from really making gains in society that are meaningful, that have more social import. So in this one, it looks like money, but in fact, you're getting shocked for it. The second rebellion occurs when he attempts to throw one of the white men onto the electrified map. Now, he doesn't quite do it, and he gets a major kick for it. But it is a moment where our narrator attempts to sort of turn the tables just a little bit. Finally, our final section of this little allegory is the speech that he's been hired to give and that he's preparing to give. And this speech becomes sort of about how the black man should go about trying to improve himself. And by saying the black man, it's sort of anachronistic. It comes from another time, but that's how they're thinking then, that how the black race should attempt to go forward. And what he's going to argue is that social responsibility, that black people should know their place. They should put down their bucket where they are, as in not try to create their own thing, but try to operate within the society that's been set up by its rules and to sort of play ball. He slips once, though, and it's not clear entirely how much of it is just a slip of a tongue and how much is sort of subconscious or more, but we see him slip and say equality rather than opportunity, as in that they should actually have equal place in society. Now, this is an incredible provocation given the circumstances, the people who he's surrounded by, and he recognizes just how dangerous it is for him to have said that. What he receives from all of this, again, within our allegory, is a briefcase with a scholarship in it, a sort of symbolic reward here that he will be able to go up into a higher education and eventually have a career. However, that is sort of undercut by the dream he has at the end, in which envelopes, there's envelopes stuffed into envelopes, and as he opens them all and gets to the final envelope, he sees essentially, "Keep this boy running" is the message. So realizing, having some kind of revelation here that all of these hoops that he's meant to jump through, all of these so-called honors or other competitions he's put into, all are sort of a way to keep him from ever achieving that very thing he just slipped and said, namely equality, real equality between the races. And in fact, this is ways to keep it unequal. All of these are other modes of oppression or of keeping the sort of current state of power in play. So Normally, when I'm teaching this one, I like to sort of let you tease this out, this allegory, but this video format doesn't allow me to do that. But I think there's more to it than just I've given you, and a lot of subtlety here as far as the question of social commentary, of what he's trying to say about black and white relations before the Jim Crow era, and what it felt like essentially to be a young black man growing up and not being sure about the right way to go, how to achieve success, and what the moral path would be. So hopefully that will give you some material to think about as you read Battle Royal. And I will expect a blog post, even though you do have a paper coming as well. Just that, that one blog post this week, since you have 2 readings total. And most of all, let's think about our papers. I won't have a video tomorrow, but this is the time to ask your questions, to get a draft and outline together. I don't read drafts, but I will read your thesis and tell you what I think about the direction your paper is going. Send me an email. Let's interact on the blogs, and otherwise have a great Monday. I look forward to seeing your papers coming up soon. Thanks a lot.